seeing as we are currently in September and we are 3 months away from the end of the year, I thought I would do a little rundown of the first half of my year, because I do this thing where every December, January, I go, I'm gonna have a quiet year. This year won't be as hectic and chaotic as last year. I'm gonna slow down, and it doesn't happen. And I think this is just a human trait. I think everybody does this. But there is part of me that really wishes I was able to say no to stuff. But when exciting opportunities come my way, I find it really tough to say no. And I end up taking on way too much. And everything's either back to back or they overlap. This year has definitely not been a quiet one, and remains to not be a quiet one right up until the end of the year. That being said, I have done way more traveling this year than I have, God, in like the last 10 years, which has been wonderful. So I thought I would just give you a little rundown, because YouTube has kind of missed out on a lot of this stuff. I haven't posted a lot of this stuff on YouTube. I'm mostly active on Instagram just because it's quicker, it's easier. I call Instagram stories lazy vlogging because that is essentially what it is. You don't have to go through the editing process, and you can just put together little snippets in a story to create what is essentially a vlog of your day. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you should definitely go over and follow me on there, because that is where I am most active and you get the full rundown of what I'm up to. But I thought I would just give you guys, who are still active on YouTube, and considering I want to be more active on YouTube, I thought I would give you a little rundown of the first half of this year, from January to June. Let's go. So the year started off with the intention to slow down, and January was a pretty slow month. I was still in Panto. I didn't finish Panto until January the 8th. It was a 6-week long Panto, which is, it's quite a long time for a Panto. Once you get past Christmas and New Year's, you do start to wonder who is coming to watch these Pantos, and you no longer have anything to sort of like look forward to. So the final week of Panto does have a very strange vibe to it, but I loved Panto so much. It was such a great group of people. Canterbury is such a beautiful place as well. Evolution, who are the production company behind the Panto that I did last year, are just such great people to work for, so much so that I've agreed to work with them again at the end of this year in Crawley instead of Canterbury. Same Panto, same character, just different venue and different people, and Scott Page is going to be playing the good spirit, which I'm very excited for. Can't wait to work with him again, because we've not worked together since The Addams Family, so it's gonna be good fun. And this is only a 3-week Panto and finishes December 31st, so it's kind of perfect. But then I had nothing planned for the rest of January other than to go on a little break with Joel. We went to Disneyland Paris and stayed at the incredible Marvel Hotel. I think it's called The Art of Marvel, Hotel New York. It's incredible. And then we also went to Iceland at the end of the trip. We had a slight issue in that our flight got cancelled because of bad weather. I have a vlog on this that I still haven't finished editing, which is outrageous considering this was 8 months ago. But we ended up having the most amazing day, just traipsing our way through Paris, seeing all of the sights, which we obviously wouldn't have had our flight not been cancelled. I was sad that we missed out on an extra day in Iceland because we were only spending a couple days there anyway. However, the reason that we were going to Iceland was the Blue Lagoon. It had been on my bucket list for forever, and this whole trip was actually Joel's 30th birthday present to me, and he knew that it was somewhere I'd always wanted to go. And oh my goodness, it was absolutely unbelievable. We stayed at the Blue Lagoon retreat. And something else that's always been on my bucket list is seeing the Northern Lights. I went to Finland a couple years ago and didn't see them and was sort of a little bit disappointed. And for the whole time we were in Paris, I had this little Northern Lights app trying to see whether, you know, our chances were high, and our chances were super low. They were like 11%, and they kept decreasing, and suddenly one day it'd be like 3%, and the next day it'd creep up to 6%, and you know, I just didn't get my hopes up, but I was still, you know, crossing my fingers that maybe we'd get a chance to see them. And the Blue Lagoon Retreat have this thing called the Aurora Wake Up Call, which is, if you request it, they will wake you up at any hour in the night when the Northern Lights appear in the sky so that you can go and see them. So of course I requested this. We'd also booked a Northern Lights excursion to go and see them, which got cancelled the night that we arrived. So the following night, when we were staying at the Blue Lagoon Retreat, I asked for the wake-up call, and I kept checking this app, And the chances were super slim, but then lo and behold, at 11:30, we got a call to the room to say, this is your Aurora wake-up call. And I have never moved so fast in my life. I just literally I was in my pajamas, so I had like pajama shorts and a pajama top on, and just put my coat and my boots on and ran up to the roof. Very faintly in the distance were the Northern Lights, and of course the first thing I did was burst into tears. And Joel was feeling very, very smug because obviously that's something that's not within a human's control. Like, you can't book to see the Northern Lights and expect them to appear in the sky just because you have booked them. But we were only meant to be staying in Iceland for 3 nights, and even that got shortened to 2 nights, so the chances of us actually seeing the Northern Lights was so slim. And we saw them, so Joel was like, well done me. So now we move on to February. At the beginning of February, I ran the London Winter Run, which is a 10K, just to try and keep my fitness up a bit, just to try and, you know, I feel like the best thing I can ever do is book myself into a run in the future, just so I constantly have something to work towards. I need that constant motivation, otherwise I'm just not gonna run, I'm not gonna do it. I took part on my own, I didn't sign up with anyone, however my mum, dad, Joel and my best friend Scott all came to watch and cheer me on, which was wonderful. It was really, really great. And the run was really fun, and they had these amazing like penguin parties, just lots of people dressed up as penguins, and they like high five you as you run past, and lots of bands and choirs, and it was just great. It was a really good vibe, and I highly recommend signing up for it because it's to raise money for cancer research. The whole thing is run by cancer research, and it's for a really good cause, and it's a really fun run, so definitely sign up if you're interested.
Hey! Come on, baby!
We've got half the set of the
We love you!
Go on, go.
Go, 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 we love you. See you at the end, we love you!
I got nominated for a What's on Stage award alongside Jodie Comer and David Tennant, which is really cool. Obviously I didn't win, but it was very cool to be nominated alongside those wonderful, wonderful people who I've admired for years. But I didn't attend the What's on Stage awards because they just so happened to fall on the same day that I was getting married to Joel Montague, and I was becoming a Montague myself. We eloped, although I don't think you can call it eloping if all your family knows that you're doing it, but we went to Gretna Green, just the 2 of us. No one came with us, literally just me and Joel. Personally for me, I never liked the idea of having a big wedding where I actually, you know, where we actually get married in front of a lot of people, because I get so nervous when I'm myself in front of people, and I'm so used to whenever I get in front of an audience I have to put on a performance and become like a heightened version of myself, and I didn't like the idea that I would be putting on a performance when I made this massive commitment to someone. I wanted to be the most authentic version of myself, and I didn't want to be thinking, oh god, don't cry, because that will be embarrassing in front of, like, you know, all of my nearest and dearest, even though they are my nearest and dearest and you're meant to cry at weddings. I knew that I would feel very self-conscious, and I didn't want that. I wanted the space to be able to get emotional and cry, because when I cry, I go like this and I can't speak anymore, and I suddenly sound like Kermit the Frog. And I just didn't want to do that bit in front of a crowd of people. I wanted that to be something that was intimate, that was just between me and Joel and the people that had to be there, which were the 2 witnesses that we hired from Gretna Green, which is a service that they provide, and the Gretna Green photographer and the registrar. And it was just the most perfect day. The most perfect day. It felt so us and so intimate, and just about what we really wanted it to be about. So we got to have the best of both worlds, which was this small, intimate little thing that was just between the 2 of us to do the actual, you know, the actual marrying bit. And then we got to have a big, wild celebration and party that was pressureless and stress-free. So then we came back from Gretna Green the next day, and I got straight back into work because I was going to be doing a production of Once, just for 2 shows on one day in March, but I needed to start piano lessons because for this performance I needed to play the piano in front of 2,500 people. And when March rolled around, on the first day of rehearsals for Once, we had a week to rehearse it, and then on the Sunday at the end of that week we did 2 performances at the Palladium, no less. Huge venue, and I was performing alongside the wonderful Jamie Moscato. However, on the first day walked in, and the majority of the cast had either already done once before, but also for anyone that doesn't know the musical Once, it's a very actor-muso show where all of the actors playing all of the roles also play musical instruments. I took piano lessons when I was a kid. I think I got up to like grade 4, not very high at all, and I haven't played the piano in quite some time. So I walked into this room where all of these professional musicians are, who most of whom have done the show before, and I just felt like I was in way over my head. And I kind of spent the whole first day fighting back tears. Went home and had a massive cry and was messaging my agent being like, I don't know if I can do this. And it got easier as the week went on because I sort of proved to myself that I am capable of this and I do know what I'm doing, but it was a real shock to the system to suddenly have this huge wave of imposter syndrome and that voice in my head being louder than it had ever been before saying, you're not good enough to do this. So that was fun. But of course the shows went ahead. The shows were great. They were received amazingly. It was so wonderful to work, if only briefly, with Jamie again. And Once is such a beautiful musical, and I sort of cross my fingers that I get to be part of it again one day, because it was just, it's a really special show. Then the Monday after the Sunday that Once was performed, Joel and I flew to Rome. And at the end of that week, we also went to Pompeii, where I had paid for my parents to come and join us because ever since I was a child, my mum has talked about going to Pompeii and seeing Vesuvius and visiting, you know, the ruins of Pompeii and being able to sort of, you know, just witness that herself. It's something that she's always wanted to go and see and has never done. So for her birthday, I told her that I was taking her with us. So Joel and I had 4 days in Rome, Monday to Thursday, and then on the Friday we got the train to Pompeii, which was wonderful, and my parents flew out on the Thursday and had a day in Pompeii without us, and then we all joined and went together, and it was amazing. It was so much fun to sort of have Joel and my parents on holiday and sort of experience for the first time what that's like. And my parents love Joel and Joel loves my parents. Like, Joel goes swimming with my dad like 3 or 4 times a week at the moment. Joel actually sees my parents more than I see my parents, but I just love that they have that relationship because obviously it's important. It's important that everyone gets along and everyone likes each other. In April, I ran/walked a half marathon, and I had signed up to this alone. However, when I arrived, this wonderful, wonderful human called Daisy Greenwood, who was the children's chaperone on Once, was there. And she was like, I've signed up on my own as well. And I was like, oh my God, let's run together, because we were also in the same wave. So it was perfect, and we had the best time. I honestly don't think I could have done it if Daisy hadn't have been there, because we really kept each other going. And, you know, we had sweets and stuff that we were sharing, and we were just, it was brilliant. And it was the London Landmarks half, so there's a lot on that route to keep you entertained, to have a look at. That is another route that I would love to do again, but I definitely hadn't trained the way that I wanted to train for that half marathon. So I think we ended up doing it in like 3 hours 20, and the last half marathon I'd done it in 2 hours 57. So I definitely added on about half hour's time there, but I still did it, I still crossed the finish line, and I still had a great time, and that is all that matters. With This Kiss was released in paperback, and I got to ride around London in a bespoke With This Kiss rickshaw, which was bizarre, but great fun. We had a very spontaneous trip to Cyprus, Joel and I. We had a few days where we were like, oh my God, we could get in another trip if we wanted to before the rest of the year goes crazy. And that was the last trip that we had. I mean, I say that knowing that we've had more trips this year than most people get in a lifetime, and we are super grateful and super lucky. But we knew that this was our last chance just to quickly get something in there before the rest of the year went wild, which it absolutely did. So we had, I think it was 4 or 5 days in Cyprus just to chill in the sun, and it wasn't as warm as we would have liked, but it was bloody lovely. And there were cats everywhere. And then when I got back, something big happened, my friends. I got a car. I decided it was time to start driving again. I passed my test when I was 17. I passed first time with 1 minor, thank you very much, and I never drove again because I just didn't enjoy it. And I had this thought one day at the beginning of the year where I said to myself, Carrie, if you don't do it this year, you're never going to do it. You're going to talk yourself out of it every time. And as soon as I had that thought, I booked myself some refresher lessons, and I went out and suddenly realised that I was more capable than I was giving myself credit for, and I loved it. And Again, I was like, okay, if I don't buy myself a car now, again, I'm just going to talk myself out of it, or I'm going to get swept up in going on tour and doing this and doing that, and I'm just going to leave it and put it off until I've sort of convinced myself that I can't do it again. So I bought myself a Mini. I bought myself a little red Mini, and I called her Darla, and she's amazing and I love her. It's one of the best decisions I have made, and I'm so pleased and very proud of myself that I did it. I've only been on the motorway twice so far, but I've been on the motorway, I've done it, and I know I can do it again. And now we're moving into May, when my tour was actually due to begin on May the 18th. So right up until then, tour rehearsals was pretty much all I was thinking of. We had finalised the set list. Ben Van Tiernan, my wonderful MD, who had also been my MD on Cinderella, had come up with the most stunning arrangements for all of the songs that we had picked. And Ruthie Stevens, who was also my director on Cinderella, my resident director, she was my director for the tour, and together we had come up with a show that we were really proud of called An Open Book. And on May the 18th, we opened in Bradford. And it's one of the scariest things I think I've ever done because, as I said, I don't enjoy being myself on stage in front of people. So we kind of come up with a way for me to play sort of a heightened version of myself within a sort of story. And the idea was that on stage, I was inside my own head, escaping from the rest of the world who were trying to make me write this show and be myself. And I was hiding inside my own head and trying to decide which stories and songs I was going to tell in the real world in the show. So the show was me creating the show inside my own head. And you know, I've done a video on the tour, so you can go and watch that one. I will link it somewhere here. But all in all, it was a great experience and I enjoyed it way more than I expected to the point where I would love to do it again. The tour spanned from May the 18th to June the 11th, and on June the 11th we were in Glasgow. So the following day I had to fly home from Glasgow because on Tuesday I was starting Crown Jewels rehearsals. They originally wanted me in rehearsals on the Monday, but my agent was like, let's just give us some breathing space. But I had missed a week of rehearsals because the rehearsals for Crown Jewels started in the last week that I was on tour. So in that last week that I was on tour, I was having to learn lines and songs in hotel rooms as best I could so that when I got into rehearsals on the Tuesday, I could, you know, prove that I wasn't going to be a hindrance to anyone because I'd missed a week. The rehearsals for Crown Jewels were during the last heat wave that we had in June. And the room that we were in was swelteringly hot. So rehearsals were wonderful, but also it felt like being boiled alive. And of course rehearsals went very, very well because we are now in our penultimate week at the Garrick before we go on tour. We only go to 4 venues. We go to Salford, Cardiff, Canterbury, and Milton Keynes. However, whilst I was in the second week of rehearsals, on June the 20th, I found out I was pregnant. Joel and I have always been very upfront with each other about our wants for the future, and having a family was something that both of us mentioned right at the start. It was something that, you know, we wanted to make sure that each other were on the same pages because it was something that both of us had always wanted. So in the last year and a bit, we've talked about what our future family might look like and, you know, what we both want and how we would parent. And we got to a point this year after we got married, and we also just didn't know how easy it was going to be for us to get pregnant because it obviously isn't simple a lot of the time, and we didn't know if we would run into any complications. So around the middle of my tour, we had a very frank conversation with each other and we said, look, let's just start trying. If we get pregnant, amazing, that's what we both want. If we don't, we'll figure out why it's not happening for us, and hopefully, you know, if there are issues, we can find out what they are quick enough to fix those problems. And as luck would have it, I fell pregnant straight away. Literally immediately, which, you know, I'm very grateful for, and I thank my lucky stars that we're obviously both very compatible when it comes to making children. And so baby Montague is due, get this, on the 29th of February 2024. Yes, baby is due on leap day, as luck would have it. Obviously I know that due dates change and babies can come earlier or later, so we might not get a leap baby, but I thought it was typical when the midwife told us that the baby was due on a day that disappears. So as I make this video, I am almost 15 weeks, which is almost 4 months pregnant, which also means I'm nearing halfway, which is wild. I don't understand where that time's gone, considering I found out I was pregnant super early. Like, I found out between weeks 1 and 2 of falling pregnant, which is very early. I'll probably make another video on the first trimester and how I found it, and, you know, I'll probably get you to send in questions so I can answer the many questions a lot of you probably have right now. And at some point I will bring Joel onto camera and we will talk together as a couple about this news, because obviously it's our news, it's not just my news, but I've been a little bit reluctant to bring Joel into this space, just because we've had some negativity, we've dealt with some things, so yeah, I just want to sort of minimize that kind of exposure as much as I can, and, you know, protect him and protect us and what we have, and, you know, this new sort of adventure and family that we're about to create. I don't really know how to end a video after sort of dropping a bombshell like that. I hope you're as happy and excited as we are about this news. And since my sort of YouTube comeback, thank you for helping to create, I guess, what I used to feel YouTube was like, which was this sort of safe, kind community feeling where I was excited to come to share my big news, because I'm starting to get that back, and this is probably the biggest news I've ever shared in my entire life, so thank you.